Yes, lads, welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute. I've been on holiday. I'm back now. I had some videos scheduled to go out. There was a problem with getting them out, so all the content was then out of date. So I am back now, not going to miss another game week this season. So today we, of course, have got the EFL preview, and it's an EFL preview with a couple of changes here and there. So the first change is going to be I will be giving myself a scoring system for all of my predictions. I just make the predictions and nothing else happens at the moment. So I'm going to give myself 3 points for a correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result, and of course, no points if I get it completely wrong. So I'm going to set myself, obviously, this week will be the high score because it's the first one that we've done. If you want to go along with it, I'm going to leave a template down in the description for you to copy the results, post your comments, and we can see how well we've done. But I just want to track my progress, see if I'm getting any better at predicting games. So we'll just see throughout the rest of the season how I get on, and if I can beat the high score I'm going to set this week. I'm feeling confident. And remember, I always post my accumulator over on X. We got 10 out of 13 correct for £3,500. Last weekend, I was absolutely gutted that it didn't quite happen. But of course, we go again. So let's get into this video now. So as I say, the EFL preview, as always, we're going to start with League 2. The slight change is instead of covering 3 games in a bit more detail, I'm going to cover all the games in a bit of detail and have my game of the week for each league. So yeah, let's get into this. I'm very happy to be back, very excited for the rest of the season now. We're locking in, the grind is on to the end of the season. So yeah, let's get started with League 2. So up first, we've got Crewe and Notts County. For me, I see this being a 2-1 win to Notts County. Away from home, of course, Crewe back-to-back losses. They started so well, they've absolutely fell off the face of the earth. Notts County, however, last time out, of course, 4-0 winners against Crawley. Absolutely thumped them in that game. So I just think Notts County are going to have a bit too much for Crewe. Crewe 1, Notts County 2. Oldham up against Barnet now. This, to me, the two new boys in the league. Of course, I'm going to go for 2-2 on this one. I'm going to call it down the middle. There's going to be goals in this game. So, looking at it, Oldham, 3 wins out of their last 3 games. 0 goals conceded, 5 goals scored. So they have really managed to sort something out in those last couple of games. Well, Barnet, they've done the same thing. 2 wins out of 2, including last game against Grimsby. 3-0 winners against Grimsby. No one had that in their predictions. No one saw that coming. Are they going to be able to continue the form? I think they'll be both happy with the draw. 2 teams that have really, as I say, sorted out that form. Accrington at home up against Walsall now. I'm going to go for Accrington 1. Walsall 3, of course, Accrington last time out, that huge result against MK Dons at MK Dons as well. Massive 2-1 win for them there. I do think they're going to go back home and they are going to struggle against the Walsall side, who equally have been in some very good form. 4 out of the last 5 games are wins. And of course, last time out up against Tranmere, a Tranmere side that has sort of a bit like Crewe fell off a little bit. 4-2 winners on the day with Walsall. So Walsall, the informed team to beat at the moment in the league. And of course, Accrington flying off that MK Dons result. I don't think it's going to be enough for Accrington, as I say. Walsall 3, Accrington 1. Chesterfield now up against Newport County. I see this as Chesterfield 2, Newport 1. Newport haven't been as bad as it looks like in terms of the results in Chesterfield. It's just not quite gone their way recently, but I do think they're going to have enough to get past this Newport side. Of course, Chesterfield, no wins in the last 5 games. They had promotion hopes. They still do. They're going to have to sort that out ASAP if they do want to go up the league. And of course, Newport, 4 out of the last 5 games have been losses. It's been a dismal start to the season for them. Last time out, of course, up against Gillingham, 3-1 loss on the day. They need to sort it out themselves. I don't think it's going to happen here. It could also be a draw. I've edged it just to Chesterfield. So yeah, Chesterfield 2, Newport County 1. Crawley up against Barrow now. I see this as a 2-2 draw. I see goals in both of these sides. It's been a bit of a weird one for them lately. So Crawley, of course, up until last week had won 3 on on the bounce, and it looked as though they were finding their form, led by the frontman Harry McCurdy. That seemed to change last week, 4-0 thumping, as I say, to Notts County. It's been quite the opposite for Barrow. 4 out of the last 5 games they've lost, but the last game they won 1-0 against Crewe, so maybe they have shifted and turned it round at the same time that Crawley have shifted and gone down. So I personally think this is going to be a draw. 2-2 written all over it. Fleetwood now up against Colchester. I've gone for Fleetwood 1, Colchester 0. Fleetwood have only won 1 out of their last 5 games. They're going to be due a result. They lost 2-1 last time out to Cambridge. Colchester also 1 win out of their last 5 games, but I just think in this one it's going to be too difficult for Colchester to get a couple of goals. They don't look like they've got many goals in them this season. So yeah, I'm going to go for Fleetwood 1, Colchester 0. Gillingham up against Harrogate now. I'm going to go for Gillingham 3, Harrogate 0. Gillingham, of course, breaking that huge record for them. 21 games unbeaten. Incredible record. The best, longest, I believe, winning/unbeaten streak in Europe, which is crazy. So a massive achievement for Gillingham. They've won 4 out of the last 5 games. They're absolutely flying, and I think they're going to be too much to handle for Harrogate, who inconsistent. They've won 2 games, lost 3 in their last 5. So I just think Gillingham are going to have too much for them, and as I say, going to continue that unbeaten record. Grimsby up against Cheltenham. I'm going to go for Grimsby 2, Cheltenham 0. Grimsby, of course, that 3-0 loss to Barnet. No one saw that coming. They're going to need to bounce back now to what has been a very good start for Grimsby overall in all competitions this season. However, Cheltenham, they've only scored 2 goals in their last 5 games. They're very much a struggling side, and I think it's going to get worse. Grimsby to bounce back, Cheltenham to have an even worse time than they're already having. Grimsby 2, Cheltenham 0. Shrewsbury now up against MK Dons. I've got this Shrewsbury 1, MK Dons 2. Shrewsbury 1 win in their last 5. Flirting with those relegation places. It's early days, but if this is a sign of things to come, Shrewsbury could be in some big trouble. MK Dons in a bit of a similar position, but completely different at the same time. They haven't won in 5 games. Everyone in this league had them finishing top of this table. They've lost 3 back-to-back home games. So they're away from home this time. I do think they'll get the win against the poor Shrewsbury side, but they've got to improve. Of course, we mentioned they lost 2-1 to Accrington Stanley last time out, so they need to start getting results and get themselves out of this rut. The squad is more than capable of doing so. Swindon up against Bromley. I've got this Swindon 3, Bromley 2. Of course, Swindon fans, you'll know all about the scoreline 3-2. That's because they lost 3-2 to Salford last week, a last-minute goal to absolutely break their hearts. Away from home as well, it was a great performance from both sides, and it probably was a fair result at a draw, but it wasn't to be. So, Swindon, before that, they'd won 4 out of the last 5 games, so they were absolutely flying as well. However, their opponents, Bromley, king of the draws, the high-scoring draws, they've drew 3 out of their last 4, and they've scored 7 goals in those games, so they are very much a high-scoring side, which is why, for me, this has to be a 3-2 game. We'll tune back in the EFL review, which will come out on Sunday, by the way, and we will see this game finish 0-0. But on paper, it's a goal-scoring game. 3-2, final score to Swindon. Finally, Tranmere up against Cambridge. I've got this one at 1-1. Tranmere, things have just gone a bit stale for them. They just haven't quite been able to grind out results like they did at the start of the season. Of course, last time out, they lost 4-2 to Walsall. As we say, not great for them. However, their opponents, Cambridge, they played in midweek. They lost to Fulham 1-0. Not the worst result, you know, Fulham, of course, in the Premier League. Last time out in the league, it was Cambridge 2, Fleetwood 1, of course. So Cambridge looking to build on that league form in this. I think Cambridge will give it a good go, but I think Tranmere will also do so. So that's why I've got it at 1-1. The best game in League 2 this week is by far Bristol Rovers up against Salford. I've got it Bristol Rovers 3, Salford 3. There is goals in this game. So Bristol Rovers, key player, I'm going to go for Luke Thomas. I can see a lot of the play going through him when they do get up the pitch. I do think they're actually going to hit him on the counter quite a lot as well. And if that is the case, then Luke Thomas will be that outlet to get the ball and drag them up the pitch and create chances. As I say, goals in this game, expect him to get at least a goal or maybe even an assist. Salford's key player, I've gone for Kadeem Harris. I think he'll have a lot of space to manoeuvre himself myself in this game. I've seen how these two will face off against each other. I think Kadeem Harris will cut inside and cause Bristol Rovers a lot of issues. So I've gone for him as the key player, and I think again he could be a player that I look at to get a goal or an assist and have an instrumental role in getting a few goals for his team. Of course, Bristol Rovers last time out, a 1-1 draw with Colchester away from home. Bit of an underwhelming result, but they did start the season poorly, so they will be happy to pick things up now. Salford last time out, it was 3-2 against Swindon. That last minute goal from Kasey, massive goal for them. Huge result against the Swindon side that have been very good this season. The headlines before this game, you've got two sides, both 5 out of the last 5 games unbeaten, in form. Salford 4 wins in a row. Bristol Rovers have found their form. They've got 3 wins in those 5 games. So these are two sides that are so in form in this league right now. It's a great matchup between the two. So for Bristol Rovers, I do think that Luke Southwood is going to be the busier of the two goalkeepers in this game. So they're going to have to attack a lot more, hit them on the counter and really go for it, commit numbers up the pitch. I think they'll do so, but I also think that will leave them open. And I think it's basically the same for Salford as well, because they're going to be really going for it and leaving themselves exposed to that counter. So I just see it being an open game. Bristol Rovers 3, Salford 3, my game of the week. Can't wait to see who comes out on top on this one. Now then, let's move on to League One. Up first, we've got AFC Wimbledon up against Wycombe. I've gone for 2-2 on this one. I think there's going to be a couple of goals in the game, but overall, it's going to finish a draw. Of course, AFC Wimbledon, a bit of a surprise package this season. They have won 3 of their last 3. They're absolutely flying. Last time out, they beat Doncaster 2-1 as well. So a great time to be an AFC Wimbledon fan. As for Wycombe, they've started so poorly in terms of this season. Mike Dodds has now been sacked. Since he's been sacked, they've won 2 out of 2. So Wycombe have got their tails up. The squad was always good enough to challenge for the playoffs. They're here now. But up against an in-form Wimbledon side, I just think this one has 2-2 written all over it, as Wycombe are still trying to find their feet. Leyton Orient up against Stevenage. I've gone for Leyton Orient 1, Stevenage 2. And that is because Leyton Orient, they've just been too inconsistent for me to start this season off. Too many dodgy results here and there. It's quite the opposite for Stevenage though. Unbeaten in their last 4. They have had a great start to the season, and I just think they're going to continue that against Leyton Orient. So yeah, 2-1 to Stevenage. Barnsley up against Port Vale. I've got this Barnsley 2, Port Vale 1. Of course, Barnsley last time out conceded that 98th minute goal to Blackpool. They lost 1-0. They've then gone into midweek up against Brighton's under-21s. That Brighton lad scored 4 goals. Gomez, I think it is. Unbelievable goals as well. But they've lost 6-0 to Brighton under-21s. 7 goals conceded, all in the space of a week. A shocking week for them. Up against the Port Vale side, who at the time of recording this, of course, they play on Wednesday against Arsenal. So I do think that will take it out of them. So yeah, 2-1 to Barnsley is what I think it will be. Port Vale, if they didn't have the Arsenal game, I think they'd actually be able to get a result. But because they do, I'm going to go for 2-1. Burton up against Plymouth now. I've got this Burton 1, Plymouth 3. Reason being, Burton haven't scored a goal in their last 4 games. They're sat right at the bottom of League One. It's been a horrible start for them. Up against the Plymouth side, who have also not had the best start, of course. They won their last 3 games before coming up to Peterborough. Peterborough, of course, getting the 1-0 win last week. So Plymouth are going to want to make sure they don't slip back into that inconsistent form they experienced at the start of the season. And I think they will. I think they'll turn it around, and I think they'll win 3-1 on the day. Exeter up against Huddersfield now. I'm going to go for Exeter 0, Huddersfield 1. Huddersfield have had a bit of a slow start since a great start to the season. Exeter, I thought they actually started all right, but it's not gone their way ever since. They've lost 4 of the last 4 games. I think it's going to become 5 out of 5, and I just don't think they've got enough to even try and get a draw against this Huddersfield side. As for Huddersfield, they do need to sort it out. The last win for them was that 3-2 win against Peterborough, which feels like a long time ago now. So we need Huddersfield to get themselves a big win if they want to get up the table and promote promoted, as their fans think they will. Luton up against Doncaster now. I've gone for Luton 2, Doncaster 1. Both sides have lost their last 2 games. After making a decent start to the season, as I say, they've lost their last 2 games. Of course, Doncaster last time out, they lost to AFC Wimbledon, they lost 2-1. Lincoln beat Luton 3-1, so I just think this game is going to be both teams looking to find a bit of form, and at first, I had this down as a draw. I've changed my mind. I've gone for Luton 2, Doncaster 1. I just think Luton will edge it slightly, but it should be a good game and expect anything in this one. But I'm going to go for 2-1. Mansfield and Rotherham, I'm going to go for 0-0 on this one. It looks as though it's going to be such a dull game. Both sides really struggling to score goals, and it's just been a Mansfield start that's looked really good, and then they're starting to falter off, as they've done time and time again. Rotherham, I thought they were going to have a poor start. They've had an even worse than poor start, to be honest with you. They're down there. It's early doors, as I say, but they are down by the relegation places. So yeah, I think both sides will take a 0-0 on the surface of things, but it's going to be another game without any goals scored. Northampton up against Bolton. I've gone for Northampton 1, Bolton 2. Bolton to get all 3 points. Northampton, listen, they made a horrible start to the season, but they are unbeaten in 4 of their last 5 games, scoring 6 goals and only conceding 2. So they've really managed to sort things out on their end. I just don't think it's going to be enough against one of the most informed teams in the league. If you haven't seen it, on my TikTok, I do an overview for the League 1, League 2 and the Championship, the games that have just gone. I gave the Player of the Week to Marcus Force for League 1, 2 goals in his 60 minutes on the pitch, a great performance. And the Bolton fans, honestly, unbelievable stuff. The amount of pictures and comments that are left. May the force be with you. Gale Force wins. Like, honestly, 10 out of 10 from them. So if you haven't seen that, go and check it out. Will they be able to do it? Will we see Gale Force wins in Northampton? We'll have to see. But yeah, Bolton, of course, as I say, they're in great form. They've just beat Wigan 4-1. They're going to want to continue things. They've scored 12 goals in the last 5 games. They're absolutely flying. I'm expecting them to do so on this one. 2-1 to Bolton. Expect Gale Force wins, as I say. Peterborough up against Lincoln now. I'm going to go for Peterborough 1, Lincoln 3. As much as Peterborough have, done all right recently, 2 wins out of 2. Plymouth and Wycombe the victims. Great results, actually, when you think about it. But I just think overall they don't have enough. And I think we'll see that against Lincoln, because Lincoln, 4 games unbeaten, absolutely smashing things at the moment. Last time out, they beat Luton 3-1, as I say. So they are a team very much in form, and I think they'll go 3-1 again and repeat their success from last weekend. Stockport up against Reading now. I'm going to go for Stockport 3, Reading 1. Stockport, inconsistent start. They've only won 2 of their last 5, which is not bad, don't get me wrong, but I thought they'd be right up there challenging week in, week out, and we're just not quite seeing that just yet. As for Reading, of course, they beat Leyton Orient 2-1 last time out, but they've also made a poor start to the season. Another side that I thought we'd really see up there in and around the playoffs, etc. A long way to go, of course there is, but in terms of the start for both of them, they're going to be looking to break that inconsistency, and I think we're going to see that with Stockport, as they're going to start, and I think they will get 3-1 on the day. Wigan up against Cardiff is the last game in League 1. I'm going to go for Wigan 0, Cardiff 2. Wigan have won 1 in 5 games. In the last week, they've conceded 6-1 on aggregate across the 2 games they've played. So it has been a horrible week for Wigan, as it was for Barnsley. But I think Cardiff are going to be too tough of an opponent for them. Cardiff, of course, they lost at home. Cardiff lost at home to Bradford 3-1. No one saw that coming. Bradford, all credit to them, but Cardiff will want to show everyone that was a minor blip. We're back, and I think they will do so. So they've got to bounce back, of course, but Cardiff are going to be one of the best teams in this league all throughout the season, and we'll see it on Saturday. The best game in League 1 this week, to me, it's Bradford up against Blackpool. There's a great storyline with this game. You've got top of the league Bradford up against a very much struggling Blackpool side. So I've gone for Bradford 2, Blackpool 0. I think Bradford are just going to have too much for them. Their key player, I think it's going to be Sarkiewicz. He's been one of the best best players for them all season. That trio that they have up front, it's so deadly. And I just think that Sarkiewicz, to me, is the one that I look at as a guaranteed solid performance. So Sarkiewicz, I'm sure he'll get a goal. I'm sure he'll get an assist. But I also think it's his work off the ball in terms of his rattiness, winning the ball back, really sort of pressing on those Blackpool defenders that we know there's mistakes in those Blackpool defenders. So Sarkiewicz, to me, is going to be their key player. As for Blackpool, I never thought I'd say this season. I'm going to go for Bailey Peacock-Farrell as the key player. If this result is anything but 2-0, I think it will be down to him. Yes, he has mistakes in him, but he's proving with 2 back-to-back clean sheets that he is actually a capable goalkeeper at this level. So he's going to have to be at his best in order for Blackpool to get anything in this game. Steve Bruce, for me, time is running out. He's going to be relying on players like Peacock-Farrell to play for the manager and try and grind out a result here. Bradford, last time out, 3-1 winners against Cardiff, away from home, massive result for them. As for Blackpool, an equally massive result. They were, of course, at home. It was a 98th minute winner. Jordan Brown for Blackpool against Barnsley. So both of these sides are really on a high right now, but I just think that Bradford are going to have too much, as I say, for Blackpool. However, who knows? Both of them on that high, riding the victories of last week. So as we say, the headlines in this game, Bradford are top of League One. They're going to keep pushing now, and of course, they are definitely still promotion outsiders in my opinion, but a great start nonetheless. As for Blackpool, the headline is they may still be 22nd, but back-to-back wins, back-to-back clean sheets. As I say, massive games for them coming up ahead for Steve Bruce's future, but they're beginning to now play for their manager. So where do I think Bradford can win this game? It's that front three for me. Very solid, especially Sarkiewicz, as I say, but they're all taking it in turns to get the goals, get the assists. That's going to be the key point. But I also look at Blackpool's fullbacks and see weakness there. I think Newfield and Tyreek Wright, they're going to have a huge game, and I think they're going to bomb forward and cause Blackpool all sorts of trouble. As for Blackpool, I think they're going to play into that Bradford style of play. If they're going to bomb forward, that also means there's space in behind, and I think Blackpool will look to counter. With that counter-attack, I can imagine it's going to be finished off by Niall Ennis, who's going to be that poacher-type player for Blackpool, and expect to see a long ball forward. Remember, this is Steve Bruce ball. A long ball forward to Ennis in the space, in the channels. Maybe he'll drift out wide and then cut back in. Regardless, I think that's where there's going to be any sort of hope for Blackpool to get any chances. But as I say, this one for me, it's going to be Bradford's day once again. Bradford 2, Blackpool 0. More misery for Steve Bruce. As for the Championship then, West Brom 1, Leicester 1. I see this one as a very tight game. West Brom, of course, back-to-back losses. They're going to want to make sure they don't go ahead and lose a game at home this time. Leicester, of course, 4 unbeaten, solid start for Leicester considering the transfer inactivity, if you will. So Leicester to me will make it difficult, but I just see this as 1-1. Swansea up against Millwall, it's another 1-1 this one for me. Of course, Swansea last time out, painful at St Andrews. Lyndon Dykes a 94th minute goal to sink Swansea hearts. They're going to want to bounce back from that. They didn't really deserve to win the game, but I think a point was maybe a fair reflection considering they managed to hold on for so long. However, their opponents, Millwall, of course, picked up a 1-0 win against Watford last time out. But of course, they're also unbeaten away from home in their last 2. So Millwall certainly looking like maybe the favourites in this one out of the 2. But I think Swansea will also get a goal. So 1-1 it is for me. Wrexham up against Derby. I've gone for Wrexham 3, Derby 1. Wrexham 4 wins out of their last 5. A team that is really starting to gel together now. Ben Sheaf coming into the squad, a massive boost for them. Josh Windass back from injury, an even bigger boost for them. And I just think a Derby side that has been very inconsistent so far this season. I think we'll see it again. I will give them a goal, but Wrexham have found their form. 3-1 the final score. Charlton 1, Blackburn 0 is what I'm going to go for this one. Charlton, of course, won 1-0 last weekend against Sheffield United. Huge result that was for them. Sheffield United, we all thought they were going to bounce back under Chris Wilder. Charlton had other plans. As for Blackburn, of course, the game was postponed. But before then, they've been in some all-right form. Away from home, winning their last 2. Of course, their home form, they've lost the last 3. They won't mind that at the moment. They're away from home this week and the away form has been decent. Regardless, I still think Charlton 1, Blackburn 0. Ipswich up against Portsmouth. Ipswich 3, Portsmouth 1. Of course, we mentioned that Ipswich Blackburn, it did get postponed to a waterlogged pitch. So Ipswich are going to look to build on that 5-0 result they had last time out, technically. But yeah, of course, they were losing at the time the game was postponed. So unfortunate for Blackburn, fortunate for Ipswich. They'll want to continue that good form that they've made in the last couple of weeks. So that's how I see it in terms of Ipswich. As for Portsmouth, a shocking result last week to lose 2-0 to Sheffield Wednesday, a game where they probably looked at it and thought our home record and how bad Sheffield Wednesday's squad seems to be. Not the case. Barry Bannon had other ideas. So Portsmouth going to want to bounce back, needing to bounce back, but you're up against an Ipswich side. Very, very difficult to do. 3-1 to Ipswich on the day. Oxford up against Sheffield United. I've got this as 1-1. Yes, I'm giving Sheffield United a goal. The Sheffield United job is far bigger than anyone could have really realised, I think. And as for Oxford, to start with, of course, they beat Bristol City 3-1 away from home last weekend. Massive result for them. They've now not lost in a couple of games, looking more strong, more consistent, more solid. As for Sheffield United, we know how bad it is for them. I do think they'll get a goal. It won't be their first win of the season, but another goal on top of the one they've already scored. It's dark days for Sheffield United. Preston up against Bristol City. Preston 1, Bristol City 2. Preston have provided a few surprise results, beating Ipswich, beating Leicester, but I just think that bubble has maybe burst a little bit now. Bristol City, on the other hand, of course, goodness me, losing 3-1 to Oxford at home. It would have been a result that put them at the top of the table, so they will be kicking themselves in regards to that. But Bristol City, they've started this season so well. Preston, not going to have enough. Bristol City 2, Preston 1. Sheffield Wednesday now up against QPR. Sheffield Wednesday, of course, beat Portsmouth 2-0. And I think that's going to be where the wins stop for them so far this season, because I think QPR are going to win this one and it's going to be quite convincing. QPR 4, Sheffield Wednesday 1. And this is no disrespect to Sheffield Wednesday. I just think that, to rally themselves, to get results like they did against Portsmouth as a fantastic achievement. They just can't maintain it all throughout the season. They're up against a QPR side, unbeaten in 3, really now beginning to click and gel with all of the new signings they've made. So for me personally, I've got it as 4-1. I think they'll get a few goals, and I think once they get a couple, the third and the fourth will really just flow in. So yeah, 4-1 to QPR. Sheffield Wednesday, though, don't let those heads get down, because realistically, it's a long old season where they will need to grind more results out. Southampton up against Middlesbrough. I've gone for 1-1 in this one. Southampton, no wins in 4 games, so they're going to want to make sure this definitely isn't a loss up against the most informed side in the league. Middlesbrough, 4 wins out of the last 5, and they drew the other one as well, so they are absolutely flying right now. And with that, I just think they're going to be too difficult to beat, but I think Southampton will be able to grind out a draw. And if you're a Southampton fan, to me, I would snap your hand off for 1-1, considering how well Middlesbrough have started this season. Stoke up against Norwich now. Stoke 2, Norwich 2 is how I see this one going. Of course, last time out, Stoke lost 1-0 to QPR, have made a decent start. Norwich, on the other hand, of course, losing 3-2 to Wrexham at home. Another home loss for Liam Manning's side. So both of these sides have started okay. Stoke the better, of course. A bit inconsistent here and there. So for me personally in this one, I think it's going to be a relatively close game that I can't really pick a winner in this one. As I say, close game, but no winner. 2-2 is the score for me. Watford up against Hull, a Watford side that have scored no goals in the last 2 games and have no wins. I think they will score in this one. I've gone for 1-1 between the two sides. Hull, what a result it was for them last weekend. 3-1 against Southampton. So to me, I think Hull, they seem to do this. They get a great result, and then they seem to get sort of like a draw or a loss the week after. Watford, they haven't scored in 2 games. They're going to want to correct that. 1-1. We'll meet in the middle. I think that's a very solid shout. Coventry up against Birmingham. This is the best game in the Championship for me this weekend. They've shared a ground before. There's a bit of a mini rivalry between the two clubs when there was no other Midlands clubs really that were challenging in the Championship. So these two have got a bit of history. It's always a tasty one when they play. And with that, Coventry's key player to me, it's going to be Haji Wright. He'll of course play up front, but expect him to drift over to the left on the counter-attack. Coventry, of course, have got players like Matt Grimes, Sakamoto, that can play those killer balls, those killer long balls, and I think Haji Wright will drift over to that left-hand side, where Asai Samuel has departed his position. He'll have Asante that will be playing off him, but I think Haji Wright is going to get a goal or an assist, and he's going to have a very solid game. Birmingham's key players, I think it's going to be Iwata and Pecking. If I've said those wrong, let me know in the comments. I feel like I have. But Iwata and Pecking as their key players. The two centre midfielders. Didn't know tons about them this season. Very, very impressive though. Why do I think they're going to be their best players? I think because Jack Radoni will be Coventry's best player on paper. And I think they're going to isolate him and make his day be a very difficult one to create any chances. So I'm looking at those two to win that midfield battle. Don't forget Victor Torp as well, who will also be causing problems. But those two, I mean, they're keeping Tommy Doyle out of this side. That shows the level of quality that they have. Coventry last time out, 0-0 draw with Leicester. They had chances to win the game, especially in the first half. Carl Rushworth, what a great game from him it was. Kept his side in it really, if we're going to be honest. Leicester, towards the end, could have probably won. For Coventry, it's a good point at a place they haven't won since 2001. As for Birmingham, a 94th minute Lyndon Dykes winner, 1-0 at home to Swansea, a massive result for them, one of which they needed. Attacking-wise, though, they have to be better. 23 shots, 1 goal. I know there was a disallowed goal, but 23 shots, 1 goal. They have to be better in front of goal. The headline for both teams. So for Coventry, they haven't won since that 7-1 thumping of QPR, which feels such a long time ago now. They need to correct that. As for Birmingham, I've already mentioned it. In the last 5 games, they haven't scored enough goals. Coventry, they have leaked a few here and there. Will they be able to do it in this game? I think they could. So in terms of how Coventry can win this game, I'm looking at their wingers. As I say, Jack Radoni to me might be a bit isolated in the middle of the pitch. But the wingers, they won't be. Sakamoto, Thomas Asante, they're going to cause a few issues. Thomas Asante less so than Sakamoto. I think Sakamoto is so good at creating chances in this league. The problem for me though is they love the long throws as well. They love the crosses. There's never a Coventry player that attacks the ball. I watched the Leicester game. People just stand there waiting for the ball to come for them. So Coventry players, they've got to attack the ball. If they do, they'll get the results. It's there. The deliveries are very good. So that's how I see Coventry winning the game. For Birmingham, if they have a chance of doing so, as I've said, that midfield battle is key. Isolate Jack Radoni and then begin to push forward yourselves with Kumas or whoever it is that plays in the 10. So that's how I see Birmingham doing it. Through the middle of the pitch with support of Asai Samuel on that right-hand side, really causing Jay Da Silva, who is a lot of teams sort of go-to to try and break through. So it'll be very interesting to see who Birmingham go for on that right-hand side. I just expect Asai Samuel to be the man in the right-back position supporting themselves. So great game on paper. I've got it Coventry 2, Birmingham 1, 12:30 on Saturday. Massive, massive game for both sides who are, of course, looking for promotion. That is the end of the EFL preview. As I say, the template is in the descriptions. Let me know your scores. Remember, 3 points for a correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result. We're going to be setting a high score. Whoever gets the high score in the comments, their name will be pinned on the next video as the high score for the channel. So yeah, very much looking forward to this weekend. I'm very happy to be back. If you're enjoying the content and you're ready for the rest of the season, like, comment, subscribe, stick around for the journey. We're not going anywhere. So yes, as always, I will see you on the next one.